So, I want to end just by opening up a way to you of grounding this. I began with the highest, noblest ideals that we've ever been given by these two heart brothers. I then plunged deeply into what we're facing and into the vision of what I call the third path, a path in which we take an adventure of the soul together, not knowing whether it's going to work, but knowing that it's the only game in town, the only one that would make any real deep sense, emotionally, spiritually, culturally, in every way. But I wouldn't be serving you if I didn't want to give you a very practical way of helping yourself birth yourself as one of those glorious mad people who turn up to be love in action. If you want the whole map that I can offer with all my limitations, please buy The Hope and read it. It has started a global movement, and many people have told me and humbled me by telling me that it has been a revolution in their lives. The whole map that I understand is in that, but I want to just give you a vision of the kinds of service that you and I can bring together right now or tomorrow to help this process of emboldening us and encouraging us become real. I think of these 5 kinds of service like the divine in us reaching out to the human in us. Can you do? So 5 fingers from the divine laws of service, the 5 divine laws hold the human hand, and then they unite. And the divine human starts to become real. We clasp each other because we are 2 sides of the same mystery. So what are these 5 kinds of service? The first has to be, I believe, service to the divine by whatever way you know and love the divine. This is not a time for theological wrangling. If you are a Wiccan and believe in the sacredness of nature, and you are a Buddhist and you believe in the holiness of compassion, and you are a Christian who believes in love in action, and you are a Hindu who believes in the divine presence in and as all things, that's fine with me, so long as you also believe that believing those things is a challenge to you to enact those things. So by whatever name you honor the source, turn to the source now, with your whole mind, with your whole heart, with your whole body. And don't turn just in suffering and pain and longing. Turn in adoration. Turn in thanksgiving for the glory of the cosmos. Turn in praise, endless, boundless praise for the gift of having been given divine consciousness, and the gift of having been exposed to so many holy teachings, and the gift of being a human being. Turn in this way, and something extraordinary will happen to you. Books will fall off shelves and answer your questions. You will have dreams in which amazing beings will turn up and give you noble teachings. You will meet people in a bus stop or in the next hospital bed who will offer you priceless information about the spiritual life. You will meet in a cocktail party that you didn't want to go to, someone who will take you to someone who will take you to someone who will take you to the teacher that God has destined for you. Turn in praise, adoration, and thanksgiving, and abandon and surrender to the source. And the source then, because you've invited it in, will guide you in the most miraculous ways in the core of the core of the core of your life, and in terms of your own nature and evolution. This is the testimony of all the mystics of all the religions, and everybody in this room knows the truth of what I'm talking about. The second kind of service has to be to yourself. Because sacred activism is a challenge to the human race to turn up as the beloved of the beloved, armed with the beloved's power and grace and peace to do the beloved's work in reality. So it means that we need to respect ourselves as beings who have been given this supreme gift by grace of divine consciousness. And that means we need 5 kinds of practice, because we need to train to become lover warriors. The first kind of practice that we're all going to need are cool practices. Practices that whatever is going on, however terrible, however painful, help us experience the peace and the spaciousness and the vast emptiness, in Buddha's terms, of the divine presence. Because unless you build your practice on that foundation of the cool practices, you will never be introduced deeply enough to the eternal, deathless state of your real nature. And you will not be able to be warriors in this mad world if you don't know that nothing that can be done to you can destroy you. Nothing. The second kind of practice that you're going to need is the exact opposite. You're going to need hot practices. Practices that keep your heart vibrant, passionate, and alive, whatever's going on. The Buddhists have immensely powerful heart practices, especially Tonglen, which is the crown jewel, I believe, of Buddhist meditation. And the Christians and the Sufis have these wild and gorgeous practices in which, through saying the name of God with devotion, you can keep your heart beating with passionate compassion. You know that our main danger at this tragic moment is compassion fatigue. We are all in danger of simply shutting down in the face of so much horror. The real lover warrior understands that horror is an invitation to do the heart practices so much more deeply, so that your heart can explode open and hold horror and joy, chaos and order, madness and sanity within its vast cosmic embrace. You have a heart like that. I have a heart like that. And our hearts need to be deeply trained by these sacred practices, because we are going to need indomitable hearts to be able to do the work that we must do in an exploding world. The third kind of practice is prayer practice. All of the traditions recognize the enormous secret power of prayer. And let me tell you something which I'm sure you know. If you're doing real work in the real world, in the real madness of the real world, you will come to times where the cool practices won't be available to you, and the hot practices will be very difficult, because your heart will be so lacerated that it won't be able always to absorb the divine tenets. But I have found that whatever state you find yourself, in whatever crisis you find yourself, prayer immediately aligns you with the source in a way that is immediately, directly powerful if you truly pursue it with humility. So prayer is an enormous weapon of love, of peace. And we must use it with an intensity that I doubt if anybody in this room, including myself, has yet used it. The fourth kind of practice is physical practice. Because we need to be strong. We need to have strong bodies to hold the energies of this transformation and to give us the energy to go forward and keep going forward, whatever defeats and disappointments we meet. So plunge into a sacred physical discipline such as yoga or Reiki or sacred dance. Stop believing in the patriarchal separation of body and soul. You are an ensouled body and an embodied soul. And you need to work on all of the aspects of your transcendent and embodied identity. So get a physical practice that will enable you to stay juicy with the energies, whatever is going on. And the fifth kind of practice that is now crucial for all of us to do is shadow work. You see, sacred activism is the bringing together of the two noblest passions in the human soul. The passion of the mystic for God with the passion of the activist for justice. But to bring them together, both the mystic and the activist has to really look gruelingly at his or her narcissism. And if you are a sacred activist, you're going to have to look at the shadow of the mystic and the shadow of the activist. The shadow of the mystic we now see, and it's clear, it's obvious, it's staring us in the face, is that mystics become so addicted to mystical experience, to the freedom of sensational mystical understanding, that they drop the world, drop relationships, cling passionately to visions of this whole world as an illusion, and become secret narcissists pursuing only their own secret joy and letting the world burn. And you know many mystics like that, and I know that that is part of my own inner mystic that I have to exercise all the time. The shadow of the activist is also totally clear at this moment. However noble the intentions, however burning the passion for justice, the majority of activists that I work with are still stuck in outrage, in a martyrdom complex, in passionate, unconscious pursuit of burnout, and instead of actually bringing people to their cause, because all of this unconscious shadow is working, they alienate and repel, and in fact sometimes drive people into espousing exactly the kinds of positions that they can't stand, because the way in which they present themselves is so aggressive and full of blame and shame. So you have the two most sensitive groups in the world subtly out of it through narcissism. The mystic's narcissism being an addiction to transcendence, the activist narcissism being an addiction to doing. The good news is, my friends, and this is good news, that if you bring the purest flame of the mystic, purified by shadow work, together with the purest flame of the activist, purified by shadow work, the best of the mystic and the best of the activist come together in the Bodhisattva Christ being that is at once absolutely grounded in mystical peace and strength and knowledge, and absolutely committed relentlessly to compassionate action. That's the way through. The third service is service to all sentient beings, gay or straight, orange or purple, Christian or Muslim, human or animal or insect. And at this moment, if you don't realize that you are in a worldwide concentration camp in which the animals on all levels are being slaughtered and mutilated horribly, and if you don't realize that we and I are the Gauleiters of this camp, we are really blind. And if we don't realize that our atrocious cruelty to the animals is preparing for us, by the laws of karma, a vast tsunami of black karma that will wipe us off the face of this earth, because we continue to barbarically mutilate and torment our most loving friends and creatures on this planet in the name of our own power. And that is a horrifying position. So one of the things that all of us now must do is become a voice for the voiceless and really stand up for the rights of all animals and of nature herself, the legal rights. As Oren Lyons said when he addressed the United Nations in 1977, he said, it's very interesting, you call yourself the United Nations, and everybody nods in their suits, you know, nice suits. Yes, United Nations, world peace. And he said, I see no seat for the eagles. I see no seat for the bears. Where are the elephants represented? Where are the lions represented? You call yourself the United Nations, and you only choose one nation? Not the stone people? Not the animals? Not the grass people? Just human beings. Are you out of your minds? The response to that is, of course, obvious. You can use your global thinking in another narcissistic way to say to yourself, well, I'm awake and I'm giving the odd check to the Sierra Club, so I'm doing my bit. No, you're not doing your bit. Because your bit isn't done until you turn up in your local community addressing something you really care about with other people, prepared to go through the mess and the difficulty of creating something real. I've been talking to all the people who founded this beautiful centre, and this beautiful centre, Mindfulness Centre, the Centre of Mindful Living, didn't just suddenly emerge. It came out of arguments, of pain, of wrestling together, of listening to each other, and they had people brave enough to do that work, which is why you and I are now here to receive these teachings. That's amazing, but it takes guts, and it takes the ability to think global, but act local. So, if you're going to really turn up, every single one of you in your own way, with your own nature, with your own resources, the question then arises, what are you going to choose as the thing that you give your energies to? And this is another moment where the ego gets very excited because it's finding a way out of doing anything at all. And what the ego usually says at this moment is, oh, I'm incredibly sensitive, you know. I feel the pain of the world in ways that I can't even begin to describe to you. I went to a soup kitchen the other day and I had to go to Jamaica for a week to recover from what I saw. So disturbing to my upper middle class pampered heart, honestly. It was devastating. And then the ego will say, well, you know, because I am so sensitive, there are so many things that I care about. So what can I turn up to do about it? I mean, is it animals? Is it gay people? Is it old people? Is it the environment? Is it the destruction of the nature? I mean, I'm just so overwhelmingly sensitive that I really just can't do anything except watch my shares over Liechtenstein. That, strangely enough, I can do. I have enough energy for that, because it doesn't involve feeling, you see, just number. My friends, I'm going to challenge you gently to do a practice this week. I'm going to challenge you gently to wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning when the veils between the worlds are thin, and to surround yourself with the power of the divine by whatever way you understand it. And I'm going to challenge you gently to ask yourself one question, and to ask it again and again and again and again until you get the answer. And the question is, what of all these causes in the world breaks my heart the most? Some people's hearts are broken by the state of Christianity. They are called to serve the renewal of Christianity. Some people are heartbroken by the way in which we ignore the poor. They're called to serve the poor. But what breaks your heart, sir? What breaks your heart? What breaks your heart? What really, really breaks your heart? Because if you discover what truly breaks your heart, you will discover in that heartbreak a power of passion and energy to do something about what breaks your heart that will never run dry. That's the great secret of heartbreak, is that in the center of the dark pit of heartbreak there is a fountain of molten fire that is, this must stop. And I will turn up to do something to stop this abomination. And there's a way in which you can discover, if you want to, if you dare to, what really breaks your heart. It's a way I discovered myself, because I didn't know till about 8 years ago what truly broke my heart, because it's shattered in so many pieces I didn't know which one.
Yeah.
But I was sitting reading the paper, and I was reading about genocide and rape, you know, the usual daily news, about such an amazing race, isn't it, the human race? My God, we're so clever and brilliant, we're killing ourselves and we're destroying everything. So it's all there every day, isn't it? And I found myself I was sad when I read about the genocide, I was sad about what was happening to women, and I was sad what was happening to gay people, and I was sad, sad, sad. Then I turned over the page and I saw an article about how 5 Mexican immigrants had been driven so desperate by what they were having to suffer that they had turned rogue in an abattoir and were taking out their horrible sadness by chopping down alive heifers as they went into their death process. And I couldn't read the article because this nausea was rising and this shattered rage was rising. And at that moment I knew that for me, what I would always be ready to advocate is animal rights. Because to me it is simply terrifying that A, we don't realize the divinity of animals, and B, that we've created a world in which they're being treated in this way. What do you flinch from facing? What do you rather go and eat 10 chocolate cup cookies rather than having to think about? If you make the effort to turn towards what you flinch from, you will find where your heartbreak lives. And then I'm going to gently challenge you to do the next step. Because one of the things that happens, and I'm sure you know this, is that when you wake up to what's happening, and when you try and claim your truth and start to act, you feel horribly alone. Especially in a culture like this, where 50% of the country believe that there's no global warming, and 42%, it seems, believe that President Obama is a Muslim. You can't invent this stuff on crack. But it makes you horribly alone. And that can be a terrible dissolution of your energy. So what I have proposed, and it's written in my book, is that we really start now creating what I call networks of grace. Groups of between 6 to 10 or 15 people who come together to love each other up, to pray together, to meditate together, and to choose together to dedicate their energies to doing something real in their local situation. And if you look up my website, networksofgrace.org, you'll see that there are networks of grace addressing all kinds of different problems all over the world. So I hope to God that you're not just viewing me as some kind of dangerous entertainment up here, but that you will truly, I beg you, do that exercise, that sacred exercise of looking to where your heartbreak is, and then start to create with your friends a network of grace that can truly mobilize the inner divine focus all of the resources and energies of the group on really making a difference here in Chattanooga. Here, here, here. The birth has to break out everywhere. The fifth kind of service, really to see and know that every single thought you have and every single act you do at this most dangerous, fragile, precarious moment is supremely significant, because it will either be a thought that breeds separation and anxiety, or it will be a thought saturated by sacred consciousness which builds the new. Your actions will either be taken out of terror, oh my God, the world's falling apart, I have to get my 401k really sharp so that at least I can live in a 3-bedroom flat when everything goes. That kind of bullshit thing to do. Right? Are you going to think with the new Bodhisattva Christ passion? Are you going to act in ways politically, economically, socially that build the possibilities of this amazing birth of a new humanity? Or are you going to allow your thoughts and actions to be run by the empire of separation? Everything we now do or say, and the spirit in which we now do or say them, is a massively transformative possibility. Know that and live from that. And if you combine these 5 kinds of services, which everyone can do in this room, you will find, my friends, that the divine will reward your craziness in turning up to be and do something real, by giving you a peace you never imagined, an energy that is not human, and a wild joy that has already overcome the world. Don't believe me. Try it.
Do it.
Do it. Be it. Don't miss this immense opportunity that tragedy on a world scale gives all of us of becoming authentic. That would be like missing the mystical lottery. Don't do it. Be liberated while alive. Choose the Bodhisattva Christ path. Gamble your life away for God. And even if you die in a ditch with all of your work ash, you will have lived as a real divine human being. And you will know who you are, and who others are, and the world is, and who the divine is. And that knowledge will be worth